Slide a quarter across the table, not into someone's hand. Across the formica toward a small machine that's been sitting there the whole time, right next to the napkin holder and the ketchup bottle. Squat, glowing, maybe 8 inches tall, with a curved plastic front and a little chrome selector dial and a list of songs typed on small cardboard strips behind a window the size of a playing card. You flip through the pages. They turn with a soft mechanical click, one after another, each one a new set of titles and artists, each one a small decision waiting to be made. You find the one you want. You press the buttons, a letter and a number. You hear something happen inside the machine, a small motor, a relay, a process beginning, and then the music starts. Not from a speaker across the room. From right there at your table, 6 inches from your coffee cup. You're sitting in a diner. It might be 1962, or it might be 1978. The details shift depending on whose memory this is. The booth is red vinyl. The table is cool under your forearms. A waitress with a pencil behind her ear is refilling somebody's coffee without being asked. Outside the window, a parking lot. Inside, the smell of bacon grease and dish soap and something sweet from the pie case by the register. And at every single booth in this place, there is one of these machines, the tabletop jukebox. Not the big floor model by the door, though that's there too. The small one, the one that belonged to your table specifically, the one that made the music feel like it was yours. At their peak, there were over 700,000 tabletop jukebox terminals installed in diners, restaurants, and soda fountains across the United States alone. 700,000. One for nearly every table and every diner in the country that wanted one. And most of them did want one. The tabletop unit, the kind most people remember, was not a standalone jukebox. That's the part that surprises people when they learn it. The small machine at your table was a remote selectors, a terminal. It was wired through a cable running under the floor or along the baseboard, back to a central mechanism, usually a full-size jukebox sitting somewhere in the restaurant, often in a back room or near the counter. You chose the song at your table. The record played from the main machine. The sound came out of speakers mounted in the walls or ceiling. You were operating something much larger than what you could see. The company that perfected this system was Seeburg, and the device that defined the tabletop era was called the Seeburg Wall-O-Matic. Seeburg, founded by Eustace Percival. Seeburg, a Swedish-American engineer in Chicago in 1907, had been in the jukebox business since the 1920s. But it was in 1950 that Seeburg released the Wall-O-Matic 100, a tabletop and wall-mounted selector unit designed to pair with their central jukeboxes, compact, backlit, with a selections capacity that let diners browse up to 100 songs from their seat. The design was intentional in every detail. The curved plastic housing glowed from within. Warm amber and green light that made it visible from across a booth even in a bright room. The page-turning mechanism used a simple ratchet that made a satisfying click with each flip. The buttons were large enough to press with confidence. The whole thing was engineered to be used by someone who had just sat down and had coffee coming in 20 minutes before their food arrived. It was designed for idle hands. And idle hands, it turned out, were very good for the music business. Because here's what happened when you put a music selecting machine at arm's reach from a person who was waiting. They used it. Almost compulsively. Studies done by jukebox operators in the 1950s found that tabletop units in booths generated significantly more plays per location than floor-standing models alone, because the physical proximity collapsed the decision. You didn't have to get up. You didn't have to walk across the room and stand at the machine while people watched you choose. You just reached over, flipped a few pages, dropped a coin. Private choice in a public space. That was the whole trick. The operators understood this. A jukebox operator in the 1950s was a specific kind of small businessman, someone who owned a fleet of machines, serviced them weekly, split the coin revenue with the restaurant owner, and rotated the records based on what was getting played. They tracked plays obsessively, not because they were music fans, though some were, but because plays meant money, and the difference between a song that got played 40 times a week and one that got played 4 times was real income. The tabletop unit made everything more trackable, more immediate, more tied to the actual moment of a meal. Operators would visit on Tuesday mornings, before the lunch crowd. They'd collect the coins from the central machine, check the play counters on each title, pull the records that had stopped moving and slot in new ones. There was a particular tool for this, a record puller, a flat metal instrument with a hooked end that operators carried in their shirt pockets the way a doctor carries a pen. They knew their locations. They knew which diners played country and which played rhythm and blues and which played whatever was on the radio that week. They were, in a way, the first playlist curators, except their playlists were decided by quarters. By the late 1950s, the jukebox industry in America was processing approximately $160 million in coin revenue per year. That's not the price of the machines. That's just the quarters, the nickels, the dimes, the coins fed into tabletop units and floor models across the country, in diners and bowling alleys and drugstore lunch counters and bus station waiting rooms. The music industry tracked jukebox plays the way it now tracks streaming numbers. A song that dominated jukebox plays was a hit, not a chart hit necessarily. A real hit, a people actually choosing to hear this hit. Billboard magazine had a jukebox chart. Record labels pressed specific jukebox editions of singles, sometimes at a different speed or on a more durable pressing, because the jukebox market was large enough to deserve its own product. Frank Sinatra's career was in part built on jukebox plays, so was Patsy Cline's. So was the early career of almost every rhythm and blues and rock and roll artist who broke through in the 1950s because radio was still restricted in what it would play and the jukebox had no such restrictions. If the people wanted to hear it, the operator put it in. The tabletop unit in the diner booth was, without anyone calling it this, a democratic music delivery system. But that's where the story shifts. In 1958, a man named Dick Clark stood on a television stage in Philadelphia and introduced America to American Bandstand as a national broadcast on ABC. Teenagers watching from living rooms across the country saw other teenagers dancing to the same songs they were dropping quarters to hear at the diner. Television was doing something the jukebox couldn't. It was delivering the song and the performance and the context, all at once for free, into the home. That was the first tremor. The second was the transistor radio. Cheap, portable, available by the late 1950s in versions that cost less than a child's weekly allowance. A transistor radio in your pocket meant music everywhere, not just where a machine had been installed. The jukebox's advantage, exclusive access to recorded music in public spaces, started to erode. Music was going portable. Music was going free. And then, in 1966, the industry got hit by something it didn't see coming from the direction it came from. The minimum wage. The federal minimum wage increase signed into law in 1966, phased in a series of increases that, for the first time, applied meaningfully to the restaurant and service industry. Restaurant owners who had been operating on thin margins began cutting costs anywhere they could. A jukebox service contract, the fee paid to the operator for maintaining the machine and splitting revenue, looked like a line item that could be renegotiated or eliminated. Some locations dropped their machines entirely. Others renegotiated terms that made operating less profitable for the route operators. The operators responded by raising the play price. A nickel play became a dime play. A dime play became a quarter play. Each price increase cost plays. Fewer plays meant lower revenue splits. Lower revenue splits meant fewer operators could afford to maintain routes. Fewer operators meant fewer machines being serviced. Fewer new records being stocked. Fewer reasons to use the thing sitting at your table. It was a slow spiral, and it took decades to fully complete. The 1970s brought new pressure from a different angle. The album had become the dominant music format. Not the single, the album. Artists like Carole King, James Taylor, Led Zeppelin were making records meant to be heard whole, start to finish in a specific order. The jukebox was a singles machine. It had always been a singles machine. It could not play side two of Tapestry. It could not shuffle through rumors the way a listener at home could. The cultural center of music gravity had shifted, and the jukebox was anchored to a format that was becoming secondary. Operators tried to adapt. Some loaded albums into the machines. You could technically put an LP in certain models, but the browsing experience wasn't designed for it, and customers who came in wanting to hear a specific track from a specific album found the process awkward compared to just waiting until they got home and putting the record on themselves. The machine was losing its reason. In the 1980s, the CD arrived and changed the mechanical question entirely. The record-playing jukebox, with its carousel of 45 RPM singles, its tone arm, its precise mechanical choreography, was suddenly obsolete in its basic engineering. CD jukeboxes existed. Some operators made the switch, but the conversion cost was high, and by then the diner landscape was changing too. The diner itself was under pressure. Fast food had been growing since the mid-1960s, and by the 1980s it had fundamentally restructured, where Americans ate quickly and cheaply. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's. These were not jukebox environments. They were designed for throughput. Sit down, eat fast, leave. No tabletop units, no quarter slots, no flipping through pages. The classic sit-down diner, the kind with red vinyl booths and a patient waitress and 20 minutes of nothing to do but drink coffee and look around, was becoming a specialty rather than a default. And as the diner became rarer, the natural habitat of the tabletop jukebox contracted with it. By the 1990s, the Wall-O-Matic and its descendants were gone from most locations. What remained were floor-standing CD jukeboxes in bars and bowling alleys, a different thing, serving a different purpose, lacking the intimacy of the tabletop unit entirely. Nobody was flipping pages at their table. Nobody was choosing quietly, privately from their booth. The machine had moved to the corner of the room, and then it mostly left the room. Think about what actually happened at that table, with that machine. You were in public, you were with other people, or you were alone. Either way, you had a moment of choice, a small, inconsequential, completely personal choice, about what the next few minutes would sound like. Not for the whole room, for your table, for you. And you made that choice with a quarter and 2 button presses. The song started. Maybe it was exactly right for the mood. Maybe it was a little wrong. You'd picked it before your food came, and now it felt off. But you'd paid for it, and it was playing, and that was fine too. That was part of it. The imperfect choice that you'd committed to. The song you were now in. Whether it fit or not. There's something that doesn't exist anymore in quite that form. Not Spotify, not a streaming queue, not a playlist algorithm. Those give you infinite choice and infinite revision. The tabletop jukebox gave you one choice, a small commitment, and a coin that was already gone. The weight of a quarter was the weight of a small decision made on behalf of everyone at the table. I read about a woman once, a diner regular in a small town in Ohio, sometime in the late 1960s, who played the same song every single time she came in. Every visit, same song. The staff knew her order and they knew her song, and when they saw her come through the door, they'd sometimes put her quarter in before she even sat down, just to save her the trouble. She thought it was the machine being kind to her. She was wrong about the mechanism, but right about the feeling. That's what the tabletop jukebox was at its best. A machine that, with almost no technology at all, a motor, a coin mechanism, a cable running under the floor, made a public place feel like it had remembered you. In the United Kingdom, the jukebox arrived later and took a different shape, more concentrated in pubs and cafes than in American-style diners. The Wurlitzer and the Seaberg both appeared in British high streets through the 1960s. In Australia, milk bars, the corner shops that served as social gathering places for teenagers, housed jukeboxes through the 1960s and 70s, and the culture around them was close enough to the American version that the songs were often the same. The machine traveled because the need it filled was not uniquely American. The need was just to choose something, to reach out and make a small mark on the air around you, to say for 3 minutes, this is what we're listening to. This is what I wanted. This is mine. You slide the quarter across the table. You flip through the pages, click, 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 until you find the one you want. You press the buttons, and somewhere behind the wall, something starts moving. If you remember a specific diner, a specific song, a specific moment at one of those machines, tell me about it in the comments. And if this felt like something worth watching, give it a like and subscribe. There are a lot of these moments left to find.